It's a big crane, so it comes in a big box. It's by IMC Models and it's the Mammoet Demag CC 2800-1 crawler crane. The shipping carton has got nicely reinforced corners, and you can see how heavy it is. There's no time to be wasted, so let's get the knife out and start cutting the tapes. And then we get our first view of the box inside the box. Yes, it's the famous red and black colour scheme of Mammoet. And this is a big box. There's a photo of the real crane on the front. And if we go to the back, there's the usual notices. And we see it's Mammoet model number 410262. Inside that big box are 3 expanded polystyrene trays. And inserted into the top one is a nice book about the real crane. There's a Mammoet collector card and also an assembly manual for the model. And we'll look at those again shortly. Let's take a quick look inside the trays, and firstly the top one. And you can see the parts are all nicely protected with soft paper. Down to the middle tray, and there's a lot more parts. And down to the bottom tray, there's a lot more parts. There's a Mammoet collector card, and this model is number 1 out of 1000. And this edition of the model includes a nice book about the real crane. It is very high quality and printed on very thick paper. And it's a really nice book. It has plenty of high quality photos. And it starts by telling the story of the Demag company and how it moves into ownership finally by Tadano. And then it describes the development of the real crane. And that's from its early origins as a truck crane and a crawler crane. And then there's a whole load more photos showing the crane in various different company liveries and also different setups. A feature of the real crane is its flexibility and in how many different configurations it can be built. The book also has photos showing the crane in transport mode. So that book is a great start, and it's also matched by the assembly manual. It starts by showing what's in each tray and each of the small parts. So it's easy to identify what's what when you put the model together. The manual then goes on to describe how to build a luffing jib configuration, and there are reeving diagrams and the various stages are well illustrated. The manual also describes how to build an LF configuration, and it describes other features such as removable tracks. The manual is 52 pages, but even that doesn't describe all of the options available on the model. Also included are a number of high quality tools to assist the assembly. The model parts are all nicely wrapped in soft paper, so the overall standard of the packaging is very high. Also really nice is how the many pendant bars come in separate plastic trays. Here is the crane as it comes out of the box, and the first thing we need to do is to reeve up the A-frame. A spool of rope is included and you have to cut 2 equal lengths. And the best way to do the reeving is to temporarily support the A-frame in position. And here we're using a boom section to do the job. Reeving up is not the easiest or hardest job, but it's okay. One difference I made to the manual is the way the ropes run off of the drums, and I prefer this arrangement even if it's not actually correct. Operating all the winch drums on the model is the same. There's a key that goes through a hole in the body, and you push in to disengage a brake. But be careful to keep the tension on the A-frame reeving, or you'll find the rope jumping off the pulleys. The A-frame goes down reasonably flat, and for transport you can undo the screws and take off the track frames. And that's a nice easy job to do. There are some handrails to fit. Most are okay, but some are slightly loose. With the cab handrails on, we can now bring in the giant hand crane, and we can use that to lift it onto a low loader. Once it's on board, it is a good looking load with the A-frame nice and flat, but the spring-loaded struts don't look quite so good because they're extended, and maybe it would be nice if they were removable. Just for fun, it is possible to pose the walkway plates on the side of the body, but there's no fixings for that. I'm just using a little bit of plastic putty. Many other transport loads are possible, and that includes the boom and jib sections, but they're not quite telescopic on the model because the jib sections are just too tight a fit. But having said that, you can always make up your own transport loads to suit the fleet that you have. So here we have the crane dumped on site, so let's give it some feet to stand on. And there are 4 self-assembly jacks to fit. We can add some more handrails, and there's also a working telescopic self-erection cylinder. So with all of that, we can pose the model assembling its own crawler tracks, which I suppose is just like putting on your own pair of boots. Next there are plastic stairs to add on, and we'll move to building up a main boom. For this configuration we'll just go with a short boom, and there are parts in the box to have a longer one. The boom top comes with struts for a fly jib, and it's nice that out of the box they're not connected, so you don't have to use them. Joining up the parts, you use nuts and bolts from the appropriate numbered bags, and tools are also supplied. And the good news is that the fit of the parts is very good, and the screwed connections are appropriately tight, with very little movement at the connection points. Next we need to build up the appropriate length of pendant bars, and these bolt together in the same way. It would have been nice if there was a table of pendant lengths for every configuration, but in practice you can usually work something out. We need to add back the counterweight plate that we took off for transport, and it's secured in place by tiny L bolts. These are quite a nice fit, so they don't easily drop out. Next we add a couple of counterweight trays between the tracks, and these are a little bit fiddly to pin in place. With that done, we can load up the counterweight, including on the tray at the back, and to secure the counterweight stacks there are a couple of counterweight pins to install. Another nice display option are the outriggers that you can attach to the tracks, and they would be used if you want to lift a long boom over the side. We now bring in our main boom, and it's best to drift it into place before adding the securing bolts. Next we've connected up all the pendant bars, and for this configuration we'll just add on the small 150 ton hook. Then to complete this configuration we hoist up the boom. The crawler tracks are good looking parts in this colour scheme, and there's also some high quality detailing in terms of tiny graphics. The drive sprocket has an external cover, and the inside detailing is really good with hydraulic hoses running to the motor. The thin track shoes have got a dimpled texture, and you can see that the links are pinned together. The self-assembly jacks have got more tiny graphics. There are visible screw threads, and there are also metal spreader plates. The outriggers are of a simple metal construction. There's some very nice detailing under the main boom. That includes the slewing motor, and it's really nice that the assembly winch has got some rope on it. Moving around to the side, and the graphics are very sharply applied, and they give the model a very clean appearance. It might have looked better if all of the brass bolts on the model had been black, but elsewhere things look good with the hydraulic hoses in the body of the crane, and the winch drums all use good quality rope. The strut jackets and pistons are all metal pieces. At the back there's more tiny graphics, and the sheaves are white, presumably to represent neoprene. The handrails and footplates on the model are metal, and particularly nice are the mesh walkways. Looking at the cab, there are large windscreen wipers, and there are also graphics and lights. And if you look closely you can see some nice interior detailing. Moving on to the latticework sections, and they are very well made. They have black tipped ends to suit the Mammut colour scheme, and they also have very good looking mesh walkways. The mounted winches are also well detailed. There are plastic ladders modelled, and again the brass nuts and bolts would have looked better in black. The pendant bars are modelled as tubes, and the boom head is an impressive piece of modelling with all its multiple pulleys, and there's a modelled hoist safety cutoff. The metal hook is also a detailed part. Moving on to some of the other features of the model, and the crawler tracks roll very easily, and they are spring-loaded. Also, as you might expect for a big model like this, there are working rollers, both top and bottom. The cab rotates from a transport position, and it also inclines, and it easily holds a pose. The big 600-ton hook block is a modular part, and if you want you can undo the bolts and reconfigure it as a 300-ton hook. So again, the model is very flexible. Many configurations are possible, including a full luffing jib arrangement. And another configuration possibility is an LF jib, which is the sort that you normally see on things like wind farm projects. Both configurations are possible with the model, and here is the LF configuration. And what you see here is not a full height model. There are parts in the box to push it quite a bit higher. This configuration uses a derrick, and there's a stinger and a ballast tray. The radius of the ballast tray is continuously adjustable using the large piston. It's a nicely modelled part, all in metal, and there's a small grub screw that can be used to lock the extension. The modelling of the luffing jib and this jib are both of a high quality, and they match the quality of the rest of the model. This configuration uses the top of the luffing jib, and it's got a couple of nice dolly wheels which are used during the erection process. For this configuration, let's do a dim check. And to the top of the LF configuration, it's about 68 inches or 172 centimetres. And as already stated, there are more parts in the box which could make it taller. IMC Models has produced a very high quality model of the CC 2800 crawler crane. The presentation is top quality with the included book and manual, and the model itself is a great combination of high detail, very nice functionality, and best of all the flexibility of all the configurations that can be built out of the box. Overall, there's no question this model is excellent.